My wife always packs for business trips like she's prepping for D-Day. This time it was just a weekend with the girls in Bar Harbor, or so she thought I believed. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Eli Baxter, 43 years old, owner of Baxter's Used Cars in Willoughby, Maine. Not exactly the American dream, but it pays the bills and keeps me busy enough to avoid thinking about how my marriage turned into a polite charade somewhere between our 10th anniversary and last Tuesday. Melissa was in the shower, humming some tune I didn't recognize, when I spotted her purse on the bed. Now, I'm not normally the snooping type, but something about her sudden interest in weekend getaways and that new perfume she'd been wearing had my radar pinging like a submarine in enemy waters. The burner phone was tucked behind her makeup compact, a cheap flip phone that definitely wasn't her usual iPhone. My hands were steadier than I expected as I flipped it open and scrolled through the messages. Can't wait to have you all to myself this weekend. That pathetic husband of yours will never know what hit him. TK. The lake house is perfect. We can do all those things we talked about, especially that thing with the... I stopped reading. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed a bowling ball, but my brain was already shifting into gear. TK had to be Travis Kemp, Melissa's ex-boyfriend from college, the same Travis who'd made a fortune in real estate development and never missed a chance to remind me about it at town functions. The shower was still running. I snapped photos of every message with my own phone, hands moving with the precision I used when checking VIN numbers on suspicious trade-ins. Years of dealing with lying customers had taught me to document everything. At least she's not cheating with a poet, I muttered to myself, scrolling through more explicit messages that would make a sailor blush. Though Travis always did have a way with words, especially four-letter ones. I heard the shower turn off and quickly put the burner phone back exactly where I'd found it. By the time Melissa emerged from the bathroom in her terry cloth robe, I was sitting on the bed pretending to read a car magazine. "You're up early," she said, not quite meeting my eyes as she started pulling clothes from her dresser. "Couldn't sleep. You know how it is." She packed with military efficiency, designer clothes, expensive lingerie I'd never seen before, and enough makeup to stock a department store counter. I watched her every move, cataloging details like I was preparing for a deposition. "So remind me again who you're going with," I asked casually. "Just Sarah and Jennifer from the firm. You know, girl talk, wine, that sort of thing." The lie rolled off her tongue smoother than aged whiskey. "Sounds fun. You should take some pictures." She paused for just a fraction of a second while folding a black lace nightgown. "Oh, you know how I am with cameras. I'll probably forget." Right. The woman who documented every meal on Instagram was suddenly camera shy. After she left in her BMW, blowing me a kiss that felt like a slap, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and planning. Most men would probably cry or punch a wall or call a lawyer. But I'd spent 20 years selling cars to people who thought they could outsmart me. I knew how to play the long game. First things first, I needed to know where she was really going. The GPS in her car was easy enough to disable with a simple fuse pull, but I had something better. A magnetic tracker I'd bought for keeping tabs on cars on the lot went under her rear bumper while she was loading her suitcase. My phone buzzed with a text from Sienna Drake, Melissa's law partner and supposed best friend. "Hope Mel enjoys her weekend. You're so lucky to have such an independent wife." The condescending tone made my teeth itch. Sienna had never liked me, probably because I didn't kiss her ass like everyone else in Melissa's social circle. But her text confirmed what I already suspected. She was in on it. I replied, "Yeah, she deserves some fun, working so hard lately." By noon, the tracker showed Melissa's car had stopped at Travis's lakeside mansion, 15 miles outside town. I'd sold Travis a car 2 years ago, a flashy red Corvette that screamed midlife crisis. He tried to negotiate the price down while bragging about his latest development project. the kind of guy who'd tip a waitress 5% and expect her to be grateful. The smart play would have been to call a lawyer and start divorce proceedings. The satisfying play was something else entirely. I locked up the car lot early and drove out to the lake, parking behind a stand of pine trees with a clear view of Travis's place. Through binoculars, I could see them on the deck. Melissa in a bikini I'd never seen, Travis in swim trunks that probably cost more than most people's rent. They were laughing about something, and Travis was doing an exaggerated impression of someone. Hunched shoulders, confused expression. It took me a moment to realize he was imitating me. Melissa nearly fell off her chair, laughing. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and started recording. Not from sadness, I was way past that. This was pure, concentrated anger, the kind that burns clean and leaves you thinking clearly. I sent Melissa a text. "Forgot your toothbrush. Should I drop it off at the lakeside?" Her response came back in 30 seconds. "What are you talking about? I'm in Bar Harbor." But the next message wasn't from her number. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Back off, Eli. You don't want to play this game. Travis." I stared at the phone for a long moment, then smiled for the first time in hours. Game on, asshole. The next morning, I was at the car lot by 7, which was early even for me. Frankie Morrison, my oldest salesman and the closest thing I had to a best friend, found me in the office going through insurance files. "Jesus, Eli, you look like you've been hit by a truck. What's eating you?" Frankie was 68, built like a scarecrow, and had been selling cars since before I was born. He'd worked for my father before me, and had a talent for reading people that bordered on supernatural. If anyone could help me pull this off, it was him. "Melissa's cheating on me," I said, without looking up from the files. Frankie poured himself coffee from the pot that probably hadn't been cleaned since the Clinton administration. "With that real estate prick, Travis?" I looked up sharply. "How did you—" "Son, I've been watching that snake circle your marriage for 2 years. Every time he comes in here, he asks about Melissa. How's the wife? Still working those long hours? Must be lonely for her." Real subtle like. Frankie sat down across from my desk. "What are you planning to do about it?" I showed him the photos of the text messages. Frankie whistled low. "That's some cold-blooded stuff right there. You calling a lawyer?" "Eventually. But first I want to return the favor. They want to play games? Let's play." Frankie grinned, and I could see the mischievous 20-year-old he must have been once upon a time. "What do you need?" Travis drove a new Escalade, black, loaded with every option, the kind of car that screamed, "Look at me." He'd bought it from a dealer in Portland, but I knew the service manager there. A quick phone call established that there had been a recall notice on that model. Nothing serious, just a software update that would take a few hours. "Mr. Kemp? This is Dave from Portland Cadillac. We need to get your Escalade in for that recall work we talked about." "No, sir? You never got the notice?" "Well, these things happen. Tell you what, we can send someone to pick it up and leave you a loaner." "Yes, sir. Today would be perfect." Frankie took the flatbed truck and came back 2 hours later with Travis's Escalade and a shit-eating grin. "He was not happy about the loaner," Frankie reported. "Kept complaining about driving a peasant car. I told him it was all we had available. The loaner was a 10-year-old Ford Explorer with a rebuilt transmission that had a tendency to slip into neutral at inconvenient moments. Nothing dangerous, just embarrassing. I'd been meaning to fix it for months." While Frankie worked on installing a tracking device in the Escalade, I drove to the Rusty Anchor, Willoughby's premier and only dive bar. Marcy Sullivan had been tending bar there for 15 years and knew every secret in town. She was also one of the few people who'd never treated me like Melissa's accessory husband. "Eli Baxter, as I live and breathe. Little early for you, isn't it?" "Just coffee, Marcy, and maybe some information." She poured coffee that could strip paint and leaned against the bar. "About your wife and that Travis character? Honey, half the town's been talking about it for weeks." My stomach dropped. Weeks? Oh, sweetie. Marcy's expression softened. I thought you knew. They've been meeting at that little motel out on Route 9. Clive Henderson saw them there last Tuesday when he was driving back from Bangor. Clive was my next-door neighbor, a retired postal worker who knew everyone's business better than they did. If he'd seen them, it was true. How long? I asked. Couple months, maybe more? I'm sorry, Eli. I thought about saying something, but it wasn't your place. I get it. I was finishing my coffee when Sienna Drake walked in. She never came to places like the Rusty Anchor, too blue-collar for her tastes. Seeing me there clearly surprised her. Eli, what a coincidence. I was just in the neighborhood. Sure you were. Checking up on me for Melissa? Sienna's smile faltered. I don't know what you mean. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot of her text from yesterday. Cut the shit, Sienna. I know you're in on it. She glanced around nervously, then slid into the booth across from me. Look, Eli, what Melissa does is her business. You two haven't been happy for years. So that makes it okay? It makes it inevitable. Travis can give her things you never could. Security, status, a real future. The condescension in her voice made my jaw clench. And what's your cut? You helping her out of the goodness of your heart? I'm her friend. I want her to be happy. Right. Has nothing to do with Travis promising to use your firm for all his development deals once they're together. Sienna's face went white. Bingo. That's not... How did you... Lucky guess, but thanks for confirming it. I left her sitting there and drove back to the lot. Frankie had finished with the Escalade and was hosing down the flatbed. All set, GPS tracker, and I may have accidentally loosened a few bolts on the exhaust system. Nothing dangerous, but it's going to sound like a diesel truck in a few days. My phone buzzed with a text from Travis. Got your message, Eli. Stay away from the lake house. This is your only warning. I hadn't sent any message, which meant Melissa had told him about my text yesterday, and now they were trying to intimidate me. These people really didn't know who they were dealing with. I called Portland Cadillac back. Dave, it's Eli from Baxter's Used Cars. About that Escalade. Yeah, we're going to need to keep it a few more days. Some complications with the software. I understand, but we want to make sure it's perfect. Customer satisfaction and all that. Then I called Travis directly. Kemp. Travis, it's Eli Baxter. About your car. What about it? When do I get it back? This loaner is a piece of junk. Well, that's the thing. There were some additional issues we discovered during the recall work. Safety-related. Could be another week, maybe 2. The silence on the other end was beautiful. 2 weeks? I can't drive this piece of shit for 2 weeks. I'm really sorry about the inconvenience, but I'm sure a successful businessman like yourself has other options. I hung up before he could respond. Frankie was watching me with approval. You know this is just the beginning, right? He said. Oh, I'm counting on it. That evening, I sat in my empty house eating takeout Chinese and planning my next moves. Melissa had called earlier to check in, her voice bright and fake as artificial sweetener. Having such a wonderful time with the girls. We might extend the trip through Monday. That's great, honey. You deserve it. The lie came easily now. I was getting good at this game. Monday morning brought the first real test of my plan. Melissa came home around noon, glowing with what she probably thought was a healthy weekend tan, but looked more like guilt to me. She was carrying a shopping bag from some boutique I'd never heard of. How was Bar Harbor? I asked, not looking up from my coffee. Wonderful. So relaxing. The girls and I had such a good time. She kissed my cheek, and I caught a whiff of cologne that definitely wasn't mine. How was your weekend? Quiet. Caught up on some paperwork at the lot. She disappeared upstairs to unpack, and I heard her phone ringing. From the tone of her voice, it was Travis. I couldn't make out words, but the conversation sounded tense. An hour later, my own phone rang. Baxter, this is Travis Kemp. We need to talk. About your car? I told you, we're working on it as fast as... Not about the fucking car. About you sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. I walked out to the back porch where Melissa couldn't hear. I'm not sure what you mean. Cut the shit. I know you followed us to the lake house. I know you've been tracking Melissa. Actually, I'd been tracking him, but close enough. Travis, I think you're paranoid. Maybe you should talk to someone about that. Listen to me very carefully, you pathetic little man. Melissa is going to leave you. It's already decided. You can make this easy or hard, but either way, it's happening. The casual cruelty in his voice flipped a switch in my brain. These people had been laughing at me, planning my humiliation, treating me like I was too stupid to notice. Time to show them how wrong they were. You know what, Travis? You're right. Melissa probably will leave me. But before that happens, I think the whole town should know what kind of man she's leaving me for. What's that supposed to mean? Check your email. I hung up and immediately forwarded the screenshots of Melissa's burner phone messages to Travis's business email, along with a note. Thought you might want to see what your girlfriend says about you when you're not around. Some of it's pretty unflattering. A concerned citizen. Of course, I'd edited the messages slightly. Where Melissa had written, Travis is so much better than Eli in bed, I changed it to, Travis is so desperate in bed, nothing like Eli. Where she'd called me a pathetic loser, I made it, Travis is such a pathetic loser. Let them try to figure out which messages were real. My phone started ringing immediately. I turned it off. That afternoon at the car lot, Frankie found me in the garage working on an oil change I could have had Jimmy, our mechanic, do in half the time. You're going to strip those threads if you keep cranking on them like that, he observed. Travis called. Made some threats. What kind of threats? I told him about the conversation. Frankie whistled. So what's next? Next, I think it's time to let Melissa's law firm know what kind of person they're partnering with. The law firm of Drake & Associates had a group email list for all partners and associates. Sienna had mentioned it once during some boring story about office politics. A little social engineering with their receptionist got me the email address. The subject line read, Personal matter. Please disregard if received in error. The body of the email contained the real screenshots from Melissa's phone, including the ones where she talked about billing clients for hours she spent with Travis, and her plan to use confidential client information to help Travis's development deals. I sent it from an anonymous email account at exactly 4:30 p.m. on Monday, prime time for office gossip. By Tuesday morning, my phone was ringing off the hook. First Sienna, then Melissa, then Travis again. I let them all go to voicemail. Melissa's message was particularly entertaining. Eli, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to stop this right now. We can work this out like adults. Call me. Travis's was more direct. You're a dead man, Baxter. Sienna's was panicked. Eli, please call me. We need to talk about this situation before it gets out of hand. Too late for that. I was at the Rusty Anchor that evening when Clive Henderson found me. My neighbor looked more excited than I'd seen him since his lottery ticket hit for $50. Eli, you sneaky bastard, I heard about what happened at the law firm today. What happened at the law firm? Come on, don't play dumb. Half the partners called an emergency meeting. Word is they're reviewing all of Melissa's recent cases for ethical violations. Sienna's been locked in her office all day with some guy in a suit who looked like he wanted to kill someone. This was better than I'd hoped. I'd expected some embarrassment, maybe a reprimand. But if they were bringing in outside investigators, Melissa's career was in real trouble. That's terrible, I said, trying to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. Terrible, my ass. That woman's had it coming for years, always walking around like she's better than everyone else. And don't get me started on that Travis character. What about Travis? Oh, you haven't heard? His ex-wife showed up at his office today with a process server. Apparently, she's been having him followed by a private investigator. Wants to modify their divorce settlement based on his changed financial circumstances and moral turpitude. Her lawyer's words, not mine. I bought Clive a beer and listened to him gossip for another hour. By the time I left, I had a complete picture of the chaos my little email had caused. Melissa was waiting for me when I got home. She was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and a look that could have melted steel. We need to talk. Sure. How was work today? Don't. Her voice was ice cold. I know it was you. The question is why? I sat down across from her and really looked at my wife for the first time in months. She was beautiful. I'd never denied that. But there was something hard in her face now, something calculating that I'd been ignoring for years. Why what? Why did I find out you're cheating on me? Why did I discover you've been planning to leave me for months? Or why did I decide to stop pretending I don't know what's going on? I never meant for you to find out this way. How did you mean for me to find out? Were you going to leave a note? Have Travis call me? Maybe take out an ad in the local paper? She took a sip of wine, composing herself. This marriage has been over for years, Eli. We both know it. I was trying to find a way to end things that wouldn't hurt you. By humiliating me behind my back? By letting your boyfriend call me pathetic? By stealing from your clients to fund your affair? I never stole anything. The billing records say otherwise. 4 hours with the Morrison account last Thursday? I know for a fact you were at the motel with Travis because Clive saw you. Her face went white. You've been having me followed? I didn't have to. In a town this size, everyone knows everyone else's business. The only person who didn't know about your affair was me, and that's because I trusted you. She stood up abruptly, wine sloshing in her glass. I want a divorce. I figured. But here's the thing, Melissa. You don't get to control how this goes down anymore. You gave up that right when you decided to make me look like a fool. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled at her, the same smile I used when a customer thought they could trade in a car with a rolled-back odometer. It means your boyfriend's about to find out what happens when you mess with someone who makes a living dealing with liars and cheats. She stared at me for a long moment, then threw the wine glass against the wall and stormed out. I heard her car start and pull out of the driveway with enough force to leave rubber on the pavement. I cleaned up the broken glass and went to bed. Tomorrow was going to be a busy day. Wednesday brought the confrontation I'd been expecting. Travis showed up at the car lot around 10 in the morning, driving the beat-up Explorer and looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Where's my car?" he demanded, storming into my office without knocking. "Good morning to you too, Travis. Your car's still in the shop. These recall issues are more complicated than we thought." Bullshit. I called Portland Cadillac. They said there was never any recall on my model. I looked up from my paperwork with my best surprised expression. That's odd. Let me call them back and see what the confusion is about. Don't bother. I know what you're doing, and it stops now. Frankie appeared in the doorway behind Travis. At 68, Frankie wasn't much of a physical threat, but he had a crowbar in his hand and 40 years of dealing with angry customers. "Everything okay in here, Eli?" "Fine, Frankie. Mr. Kemp was just asking about his car." Travis glanced back at Frankie, then focused on me again. "I want my car back today, or I'm calling the police." "Absolutely. Let me just finish up the paperwork." I made a show of shuffling through some forms. "There will be a storage fee, of course. 3 days at $50 per day, plus the diagnostic work we did trying to figure out what was wrong. Call it $400 total." $400 for what? For jerking me around, you piece of shit." The words came out harder than I'd intended. Travis took a step back, and I realized I was standing up, my hands clenched into fists. "Easy there, tough guy," Travis said, but his voice had lost some of its arrogance. "We both know you're not going to do anything. You're not the type." "You're right. I'm not the type to throw punches. I'm the type who ruins people slowly, methodically, until they wish I'd just hit them instead." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." Travis stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out his checkbook. $400, and I want my car now. Actually, there's been a slight complication. The car's not here anymore." "Where is it?" "Impound lot. Turns out there was an outstanding warrant for unpaid parking tickets. The police towed it this morning. This was complete bullshit, of course. The car was in my garage, perfectly fine, except for Frankie's sabotage work. But Travis didn't know that. You son of a bitch. Now. No need for name-calling. I'm sure you can get it sorted out with the police department. Might take a few days, though. Bureaucracy, you know how it is. Travis looked like he wanted to climb across my desk and strangle me. Instead, he turned and walked out, the Explorer's engine making unhealthy noises as he drove away. That went well, Frankie observed. Phase 1, complete. Now for the real fun. That afternoon, I drove to the offices of Drake and Associates. The law firm occupied the second floor of a converted Victorian mansion downtown, all dark wood and leather-bound books designed to intimidate clients into paying higher fees. The receptionist, a young woman named Ashley, who'd graduated high school with my nephew, looked nervous when she saw me. "Hi, Mr. Baxter. Are you here to see Melissa?" "Actually, I was hoping to speak with the senior partners about the email that went around Monday." Ashley's face went red. I don't think they're available right now." "That's okay. I'll wait." I sat down in one of their expensive leather chairs and picked up a copy of Maine Law Review. After 10 minutes, Sienna Drake emerged from the back offices, looking harried. "Eli, what are you doing here?" "Thought we should talk. Clear the air about a few things." She glanced around the reception area, clearly not wanting to have this conversation in front of Ashley and the 2 clients waiting for appointments. "Let's go to my office." Sienna's office was smaller than Melissa's, but decorated with the same aggressive professionalism, diplomas, awards, photos with local politicians. She closed the door and turned to face me. "I don't know what game you think you're playing, but you need to stop. That email you sent has caused serious problems for this firm." "I didn't send any email." "Don't lie to me. Those screenshots came from Melissa's phone. You're the only one who could have taken them." I sat down without being invited. "Prove it." "We don't have to prove anything. We know it was you." Knowing and proving are 2 different things. You should understand that, being a lawyer and all. Sienna sat down behind her desk, trying to regain some authority. "What do you want?" "I want you to stop covering for my wife's affair. I want you to stop helping her plan my humiliation. And I want you to tell me the truth about your arrangement with Travis." "I don't have any arrangement with—" "Sienna, I've been selling cars for 20 years. I can spot a liar from across the parking lot. You're helping Melissa because Travis promised you something. What was it?" She stared at me for a long moment, then seemed to deflate. "His development company needs legal representation. It would be a significant account for us. And all you had to do was help break up my marriage." "Your marriage was already broken. Melissa's been miserable for years. Travis can give her the life she deserves." "The life she deserves? Right. And what about the life I deserve? Did that factor into your calculations at all?" "You're a used car salesman, Eli. Travis is a successful businessman. Melissa's a brilliant lawyer. Do the math." The casual dismissal in her voice made something snap inside me. I'd heard variations of this theme for years, at dinner parties, town events, anywhere Melissa's professional friends gathered. The unspoken assumption that I was lucky to have her, that she was somehow settling for me. "You're right," I said, standing up. "I am just a used car salesman. But you know what used car salesmen are really good at? Research. Due diligence. Finding out things people don't want found out." "What's that supposed to mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot of a bank statement. "It means I know about the $50,000 you transferred from the firm's escrow account to your personal checking account last month, and the month before that, and the month before that." Sienna's face went white. "How did you—" "Your ex-husband Danny still does maintenance work for the bank. Turns out he's still pretty bitter about the divorce settlement. Amazing what people will do when they feel like they've been screwed over." This was partially true. Danny Morrison, no relation to Frankie, did work for the bank and was bitter about his divorce. But he hadn't given me any information. I'd gotten the bank records through a private investigator I'd hired Tuesday morning, a guy who specialized in financial fraud cases. That money was a loan. I was going to pay it back. I'm sure you were, just like I'm sure the IRS will be very understanding when they find out about it. You can't prove anything. Maybe not. But I don't have to prove anything to destroy your reputation. All I have to do is ask the right questions to the right people. Plant a few seeds of doubt. You know how this town works. Once people start talking, the truth becomes irrelevant. Sienna stared at me with something approaching respect for the first time since I'd known her. What do you want? I want you to stay out of my business. I want you to stop helping Melissa plan her exit strategy. And I want you to tell Travis that his little intimidation campaign ends now. And if I don't? Then you'll find out what it's like to be on the wrong end of a small-town gossip mill. I left her sitting there and walked out through the reception area. Ashley gave me a nervous smile as I passed. Have a good day, Mr. Baxter. You too, Ashley. Give my regards to your mother. Outside, I sat in my truck for a moment and took a deep breath. The confrontation had gone better than expected, but I knew it was just the beginning. Melissa and Travis weren't going to give up easily, and I was running out of subtle moves. Time to get serious. Thursday morning, I woke up to find my truck's tires slashed and "loser" spray-painted across the windshield. Apparently, Travis was done with subtlety too. I called the police and filed a report, making sure to mention my ongoing dispute with Travis Kemp. Officer Janet Morrison, Frankie's daughter-in-law, took photos and promised to look into it, but we both knew nothing would come of it. No witnesses, no direct evidence. You be careful, Eli, she said as she finished up the paperwork. This kind of thing has a way of escalating. I'll keep that in mind. After she left, I called a tow truck and had my pickup taken to the garage. Then I called Travis. Kemp. Nice artwork. Very mature. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. But here's the thing, Travis. I've got security cameras. High definition, night vision, the works. Amazing what you can see these days. This was a bluff. I had one camera pointed at the front of the house, and it hadn't caught anything useful. But Travis didn't know that. You're full of shit. Maybe. Want to find out? I'm thinking the police might be very interested in those videos, especially after I file charges for vandalism and harassment. The line went quiet for a moment. What do you want? I want to meet, face to face. Time to settle this like men. Fine. When and where? Tonight. The Rusty Anchor, 9 o'clock. I'll be there. I spent the rest of the day preparing. First, I retrieved Travis's Escalade from my garage and had it detailed until it looked better than new. Then I drove it to the impound lot and made arrangements with Jerry, the owner, to discover it during his evening rounds. Next, I visited my private investigator, a former Boston cop named Mike Chen, who'd retired to Maine and made a living doing background checks and insurance fraud cases. Mike had been busy. Your boy Travis has some interesting financial problems, he reported, sliding a thick folder across his desk. 3 properties in foreclosure, 2 business partners suing him for fraud, and a tax lien from the IRS for $200,000. So he's broke? Worse than broke. He's leveraged up to his eyeballs and scrambling to stay ahead of his creditors. That lakeside mansion? He doesn't own it. It belongs to his business partner, who's been trying to evict him for 6 months. What about his ex-wife? She's the interesting part. Turns out she's been building a case to have their divorce settlement modified. Claims he hid assets during the original proceedings. If she's right, he could owe her another $500,000 in back support. This was better than I'd hoped. Travis wasn't just a cheating bastard. He was a broke cheating bastard who'd been lying to everyone, including Melissa. One more thing, Mike said. I did some digging on your wife's law firm. They're in trouble too. The State Bar Association opened an investigation based on an anonymous complaint about client funds being misused. Anonymous complaint? Someone sent them copies of billing records that don't match up with the hours reported to clients, plus bank records showing unusual transfers from escrow accounts. I smiled. Imagine that. That evening, I arrived at the Rusty Anchor early and claimed a table in the back corner where I could see the entire bar. Marcy brought me a beer and a sympathetic smile. Heard about your truck. That's a damn shame. These things happen. Still, there's no call for that kind of behavior. Some people have no class. Travis showed up at exactly 9 o'clock, looking around the bar like he expected an ambush. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people made in a week, but it couldn't hide the stress lines around his eyes or the way his hands shook slightly as he sat down across from me. You look tired, Travis. Everything okay? Cut the shit. You said you wanted to settle this. Let's settle it. I took a sip of my beer and studied him. Up close, the cracks in his facade were obvious. His shirt collar was frayed, his shoes needed resoling, and there was a desperate edge to his voice that hadn't been there before. Here's the deal, I said. You're going to stop seeing my wife. You're going to leave town, and you're going to disappear from our lives forever. Travis laughed, but it sounded forced. Or what? Or I'm going to destroy you. You? You're nobody. You sell used cars in a shit town to people who can't afford real cars. What are you going to do to me? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo of the foreclosure notice on his lakeside mansion. His face went white. Where did you get that? Public records. Amazing what you can find when you know where to look. I swiped to the next photo, the tax lien. This one's interesting too. $200,000. That's a lot of money for a successful businessman. Those are private? Nothing's private when it's filed with the government. Want to see the lawsuit from your business partners? Or maybe the one from your ex-wife? Travis's composure cracked completely. You son of a bitch! You've been investigating me? Due diligence. Same thing I do before I buy any car. You never know what problems might be hiding under the hood. What do you want? I told you. Leave my wife alone. Leave town. Disappear. I can't just leave. I have business interests here. What business interests? The development company that's being sued by its investors? The properties that are in foreclosure? The office space you haven't paid rent on in 3 months? Travis stared at me with something approaching hatred. Melissa loves me. She's going to leave you whether I'm here or not. Maybe. But she's not going to leave me for a broke loser who's been lying to her about everything. See, I had an interesting conversation with her this afternoon. Told her all about your financial problems. She seemed surprised. This was another bluff. I hadn't talked to Melissa since our fight Monday night. But the look on Travis's face told me I'd hit the mark. You're lying. Am I? Why don't you call her and ask? Travis pulled out his phone and dialed. I could hear it ringing, but no one answered. He tried again with the same result. She's probably working late, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Or maybe she's reconsidering her options. Melissa's always been practical about money. Hard to be romantic about a guy who can't pay his bills. Travis stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. He stormed out, leaving me alone with my beer and a sense of satisfaction I hadn't felt in months. Around me, the bar's regular customers continued their conversations, but I caught a few glances in my direction. Word would be all over town by tomorrow. I finished my beer and walked outside to find Travis waiting by my rental car, a beat-up sedan I'd borrowed from the lot. We need to finish this, he said. I thought we just did. No, we need to finish this right now, you and me. He was standing too close, trying to intimidate me with his height and his expensive suit. But I'd dealt with plenty of angry customers over the years, and I knew how to handle myself. Travis, you really don't want to do this. Don't I? You've been screwing with my life for a week. Time to return the favor. He took a swing at me, clumsy, telegraphed, the kind of punch thrown by someone who'd never been in a real fight. I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him into the side of my car. "Feel better?" I asked. He turned around, his face red with embarrassment and anger. "You think you're so smart, but you don't know everything." "I know enough." "Do you know about the baby?" The words hit me like a physical blow. "What baby?" "Melissa's pregnant, has been for 2 months, and before you get any ideas, the timing makes it pretty clear who the father is." I stared at him, trying to process this information. Melissa and I had been trying to have children for years without success. The doctors had never been able to explain why. "You're lying." "Ask her yourself." "Oh wait, you can't. She's not taking your calls anymore." Travis smiled, and for the first time all week, he looked genuinely confident. "Game over, Eli. You lose." He walked away, leaving me standing in the parking lot with my world collapsing around me. I sat in the rental car for a long time, staring at nothing and trying to figure out what to do next. Then I started the engine and drove home to wait for my wife. Melissa didn't come home that night, or the next morning. Her car wasn't in the driveway, her side of the bed hadn't been slept in, and her coffee mug sat unused in the kitchen sink. I called her office and got Ashley, the receptionist. "I'm sorry, Mr. Baxter, but Melissa isn't in today. She's taken some personal time. Do you know when she'll be back?" I really can't say. You might want to try her cell phone." Her cell phone went straight to voicemail. The message I left was simple. "We need to talk. About everything." By Friday afternoon, I was starting to worry. Melissa might be cheating on me, she might be planning to leave me, but disappearing without a word wasn't like her. She was too controlled, too methodical to just vanish. I was sitting in my office at the car lot, staring at paperwork I couldn't concentrate on, when Frankie knocked on the door. "You've got visitors." 2 women walked into my office, Melissa's mother, Patricia, and her sister, Jennifer. Both looked like they'd rather be anywhere else in the world. "Eli," Patricia said stiffly, "we need to discuss the situation." "What situation would that be?" "Don't play dumb. We know about the emails you sent, the harassment, all of it. This has gone far enough." Jennifer, who'd never liked me but had always been polite about it, wasn't bothering with politeness now. "Melissa's devastated. She's staying with friends because she's afraid to come home." "Afraid of what? I've never laid a hand on her." "There are different kinds of abuse," Patricia said. "Stalking, harassment, public humiliation. What you've done is just as bad as hitting her." I looked at these 2 women who'd never thought I was good enough for their daughter and sister, and felt something cold settle in my chest. "Did she tell you about Travis? About the affair?" "That's between you and Melissa," Jennifer said. "It doesn't justify what you've done." "What about the baby? Did she tell you about that too?" Both women went silent. Patricia's face went pale. "How did you—" Jennifer started, then stopped. "So it's true." Patricia sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. "Eli, this is a very complicated situation. It seems pretty simple to me. My wife's been cheating on me for months. She's pregnant with another man's child, and now her family is here telling me I'm the bad guy for being upset about it." "You don't understand," Jennifer said. "Travis isn't— the situation isn't what you think it is." "Then explain it to me." The 2 women looked at each other, having some kind of silent conversation. Finally, Patricia spoke. "Travis has been lying to Melissa. About his finances, his divorce, everything. When she found out the truth, she ended things with him." "When?" "Wednesday night, after you talked to her." I hadn't talked to Melissa Wednesday night, which meant Travis had been lying about that too. "Where is she now?" "She's staying at a hotel. She's afraid to face you after everything that's happened." "What hotel?" "The Hampton Inn, out by the interstate. Room 237. Jennifer shot her mother a sharp look. "Mom, you shouldn't—" "He has a right to know. They need to work this out." I stood up. "Thank you. Eli." Patricia said as I headed for the door. Whatever problems you and Melissa have, that baby is innocent. Don't let your anger hurt an innocent child. I drove to the Hampton Inn in a daze, trying to process everything I'd learned. Melissa had ended things with Travis. She was pregnant. She was afraid to face me. The hotel was one of those generic chain places that looked the same whether you were in Maine or Montana. I took the elevator to the second floor and found room 237. I knocked softly. "Melissa, it's me." No answer. "I know you're in there. Your mother told me where to find you." I heard movement inside, then the sound of the chain being removed. The door opened, and I saw my wife for the first time in 3 days. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her eyes were red from crying, and she was wearing the same clothes I'd seen her in Monday night. But what struck me most was how small she looked, how vulnerable. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside without speaking. The hotel room was a mess, clothes scattered around, empty takeout containers on the dresser, tissues everywhere. "How long have you known?" she asked. "About the affair? Since last weekend. About the baby? Travis told me Thursday night." She flinched at Travis's name. "He wasn't supposed to—" I asked him not to say anything until I figured out how to tell you. "Is it his?" The question hung in the air between us. Melissa sat on the edge of the bed and started crying again. "I don't know," she whispered. "The timing. It could be either of you." I sat down in the room's single chair, suddenly exhausted. "How long?" "The affair, I mean." 3 months. It started at that charity dinner in April. You remember, the one for the children's hospital? You couldn't come because you had that emergency at the lot. I remembered. A customer's trade-in had caught fire in the parking lot, and I'd spent the evening dealing with the fire department and insurance adjusters while Melissa went to the dinner alone. Travis was there with some business associates. We started talking and... I don't know. He made me feel interesting again, important. And I didn't? She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. When was the last time we had a real conversation, Eli? Not about bills or schedules or whose turn it is to take out the trash, but a real conversation about something that mattered? I thought about it and couldn't come up with an answer. I felt like I was disappearing, she continued, like I was just going through the motions of being your wife without actually being seen by you. Travis saw me. Travis lied to you about everything. I know that now, but for 3 months, he made me feel alive again. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of 15 years of marriage pressing down on us. "What do you want to do?" I asked finally. "I want to come home. I want to try to fix this, but I don't know if that's possible after everything that's happened. The baby, I'll get a paternity test as soon as it's safe. If it's Travis's, I'll deal with that. But if it's yours, if it's mine, we'll raise it together. If it's his, we'll still raise it together. That's what marriage means." She looked at me with surprise. "You do that? After everything I've done?" "Melissa, I've spent the last week trying to destroy your life. I think we're even." For the first time in days, she almost smiled. "You did a pretty good job. My career's probably over, my reputation's shot, and half the town thinks I'm a criminal." "Your career isn't over. The Bar Association investigation will probably result in a reprimand, maybe a suspension, but you're too good a lawyer to stay down for long. As for your reputation, this is a small town. People forget." "And Travis?" "Travis is leaving town. His financial problems are about to catch up with him, and he knows it. Last I heard, he was trying to sell his car to raise cash for a bus ticket." This was partially true. I'd called Jerry at the impound lot that morning and arranged for Travis's Escalade to be discovered with several $1,000s worth of additional damage. Apparently, someone had vandalized it while it was in storage. The insurance claim would take months to process, and Travis needed cash now. "I'm sorry," Melissa said. For all of it. The affair, the lies, the way I treated you. You deserved better. We both made mistakes. The question is whether we can move past them. She wiped her eyes and looked at me directly for the first time since I'd arrived. I'd like to try. So would I. I stood up and offered her my hand. Come home? She took it and let me help her up. Okay, but we're going to need counseling. Real counseling, not just talking about it. Already made an appointment with Dr. Patterson for next week. She looked surprised again. You did? I've had a lot of time to think this week. About us, about what went wrong, about what I want our future to look like. I don't want to lose you, Melissa. Not to Travis, not to Pride, not to anything. We packed her things in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. As we were leaving, she turned to me. What about the people in town? The gossip? Let them talk. By next month, they'll have found something else to gossip about. Besides, I think most people are more interested in Travis's spectacular fall from grace than our marriage problems. What do you mean? I told her about Travis's financial problems, his ex-wife's lawsuit, and his impending departure from town. By the time I finished, she was shaking her head in amazement. He lied about everything? Pretty much. The successful businessman thing was all smoke and mirrors. He's been living on credit and borrowed time for years. I feel like such an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're human. We all want to believe in fairy tales sometimes. We drove home in separate cars, Melissa following me through the familiar streets of Willoughby. As we pulled into our driveway, I saw Clive Henderson working in his garden next door. He waved, and I waved back. Inside our house, everything looked the same but felt different. The kitchen where we'd had our last fight, the bedroom where she'd packed for her fake weekend with the girls, the living room where we'd spent countless evenings in comfortable silence. It all seemed like it belonged to different people. It's going to take time, Melissa said, reading my thoughts. I know, but we have time. She went upstairs to shower and change clothes while I made coffee and tried to process everything that had happened. A week ago, I'd been a cuckolded husband planning elaborate revenge. Now I was a man trying to save his marriage and possibly preparing to become a father. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Frankie. How'd it go? She's home. We're going to try to work things out. Good for you. What about Travis? What about him? Well, he showed up at the lot about an hour ago looking for you. When I told him you weren't here, he got pretty agitated. Started making threats about what he was going to do when he found you. I sighed. Where is he now? Drove off toward the lake. But Eli, he looked desperate, dangerous. You might want to call the police. I'll handle it. You sure about that? I looked upstairs, where I could hear Melissa moving around in our bedroom. Yeah, I'm sure. I hung up and called Travis's number. It went straight to voicemail. Travis, it's Eli. I know you're upset, but it's over. Melissa's home, you're leaving town, and we're all moving on with our lives. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I was about to hang up when he answered. It's not over, you son of a bitch. Not by a long shot. Travis, listen to me. No, you listen. You destroyed my life, my business, my reputation, my relationship with Melissa. You think you can just walk away from that? Your life was already destroyed. I just helped people see the truth. The truth? You want to know the truth? The baby is mine. Melissa and I were together that whole week you thought she was in Bar Harbor. She was never with any girls. She was with me, planning how to leave you. That's not what she told me. She's lying. She's always been a good liar. But I have proof. What kind of proof? Pictures, videos, hotel receipts. Everything you need to know about what your wife really thinks of you. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, trying to decide if he was bluffing. Probably, but I couldn't be sure. Upstairs, I heard the shower turn off. In a few minutes, Melissa would come downstairs, and we'd start the long process of rebuilding our marriage. But first, I had to deal with Travis one last time. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. The lakeside development where Travis had been staying was a monument to failed ambition. Half-finished houses, overgrown lots, and a sales office that had been closed for months. I found him sitting on the dock behind the model home, staring out at the water with a bottle of whiskey in his hand. "Didn't think you'd come," he said without turning around. "Here I am." I sat down beside him, keeping enough distance that he couldn't reach me if he decided to get violent. Up close, he looked even worse than he had at the bar, unshaven, unwashed, wearing the same suit he'd had on for days. "Nice place," I said, looking around at the abandoned development. "Very peaceful." It was going to be my masterpiece. 50 luxury homes, private marina, golf course. I had it all planned out. What happened? Same thing that always happens. Not enough money, too many problems, partners who lost faith. He took a drink from the bottle. Story of my life. "So what's the plan now? Skip town? Start over somewhere else?" "Can't. No money, no credit, nowhere to go. My ex-wife's lawyers have frozen all my assets. I'm stuck here until the lawsuits get sorted out." This was news to me. If Travis couldn't leave town, he was going to be a problem for a long time. "What about the proof you mentioned? The pictures and videos?" He laughed bitterly. "There is no proof. I was just trying to hurt you one last time before I lost everything." "So Melissa was telling the truth? About ending our affair?" "Yeah." "About the baby?" "I honestly don't know. Could be mine. Could be yours. We'll find out in a few months." We sat in silence for a while, watching the sun set over the lake. Despite everything that had happened between us, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "You know what the funny thing is?" he said eventually. "I really did love her, or thought I did. She was everything I wanted. Smart, beautiful, successful, the kind of woman who could make a man feel important. She is all those things. But she never loved me, not really. I was just an escape from her boring life with her boring husband. When things got complicated, she went running back to you. Maybe that's because her boring husband is the one who actually gives a damn about her. Maybe. Or maybe it's because her boring husband is the safe choice, the predictable choice." I stood up. "I should get back. Melissa's waiting for me." "Eli." He turned to look at me for the first time since I'd arrived. "I'm sorry. For all of it. The affair, the threats, the vandalism. I was angry and stupid and I took it out on you." Apology accepted. Just like that? Just like that. We're all capable of doing terrible things when we're hurt. The trick is knowing when to stop. I walked back to my car, leaving him sitting on the dock with his whiskey and his regrets. As I drove home, I thought about the conversation and what it meant for my marriage. Travis was right about one thing. Melissa had chosen the safe option by coming back to me. But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe safe was exactly what both of us needed after the chaos of the last week. I found Melissa in the kitchen making dinner. She'd changed into jeans and one of my old sweatshirts, and her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked more like the woman I'd married 15 years ago than she had in months. "How did it go?" she asked. "It's over. Travis isn't going anywhere, but he's not going to be a problem anymore." "What do you mean he's not going anywhere?" I explained about the frozen assets and the lawsuits. Melissa listened without comment, stirring the pasta sauce with mechanical precision. "So we'll be seeing him around town," she said finally. "Probably. Is that going to be a problem?" "I don't know. Maybe. I'll have to see how I feel when it happens." "Fair enough." She turned to face me, wooden spoon still in her hand. "Eli, I need you to know something. Whatever happens with the paternity test, whatever people in town say about us, I want to make this marriage work. I want us to be happy again." "So do I. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be gossip, judgment, people taking sides. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about everything I'd been through in the past week. The discovery of the affair, the confrontations, the public humiliation, the revenge. All of it had been leading to this moment, this choice. I've spent the last week learning what I'm capable of when someone threatens what's important to me, I said. Turns out I'm a lot tougher than people think. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. Yes, you are. We ate dinner in comfortable silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts about the future. After we cleaned up, we sat on the couch and talked, really talked, for the first time in years. About our marriage, our mistakes, our hopes for the baby that might or might not be mine. Around 10 o'clock, Melissa yawned and stretched. I'm exhausted. I think I'll go to bed. I'll be up in a few minutes. She kissed my forehead and headed upstairs. I sat alone in the living room, thinking about the week that had changed everything. A year from now, people in Willoughby would still be talking about the spectacular collapse of Travis Kemp and the near destruction of the Baxter marriage. But they'd also be talking about how we'd worked through our problems and come out stronger on the other side. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Frankie. Heard Travis is staying in town. You okay with that? I typed back, everything's fine. See you Monday. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. I turned off the lights and headed upstairs, where my wife was waiting for me. We had a lot of work ahead of us. Counseling sessions, difficult conversations, the uncertainty of the paternity test. But we also had something we hadn't had in years. Hope. As I reached the top of the stairs, I could hear Melissa humming softly in the bedroom, the same tune she'd been humming the morning this all started. But now it sounded different, happier. I smiled and went to join my wife. 6 months later, Melissa gave birth to a healthy baby girl. The paternity test confirmed what I'd somehow known all along. She was mine. We named her Hope, because that's what she represented for our marriage and our future. Travis eventually left town, unable to handle the constant reminders of his failures. Last I heard, he was working at a car dealership in Florida, selling used cars to tourists. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sienna Drake was disbarred and moved away in disgrace. The law firm of Drake & Associates became just associates, and Melissa eventually became a partner. As for me, I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building a life so good that their attempts to hurt you become irrelevant. Melissa and I renewed our vows on our 16th wedding anniversary, with baby Hope sleeping peacefully in her grandmother's arms. As we exchanged rings for the second time, I thought about how close we'd come to losing everything and how grateful I was that we'd found our way back to each other. The minister asked if anyone objected to our union. The church was silent except for Hope's soft breathing. Then, by the power vested in me, he said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Again. As we kissed, I heard someone in the back of the church whisper, Now that's what I call a happy ending. And for once, I had to agree.